Quite frankly, Africa, with its 900 million people, 50% of them under 18 or so, so it's one of the largest, youngest workforces in the world, will not be successful unless it is educated and well-trained going forward. You just have to look pragmatically at the rest of the world. You have over 2.5 billion people in China and India who are investing heavily in a trained workforce, and they are the primary competition going forward for the sort of jobs that Africa would like. Unless there's equivalent emphasis on education in Africa to bring that young workforce forward with the skills necessary to compete, it's going to be a very difficult proposition. So I would have to put education and training of the young people at Africa as the fundamental requirement for Africa to be successful, regardless of the fact of natural resources, regardless of the number of photons that fall on Africa on a daily basis. If the young people are not trained and competitively equipped to compete with other people around the world, this is a very difficult proposition.
When we get to investment, you get a lot of demands, and this is very practical, it's not theoretical. The international companies come in and demand rebates, concessions, lease, repatriation of capital for a period, let's say, of 5 years. And quite often, they will not tell you that the resources they are exploiting have a lifespan of 5 years. They will not tell you that. Then they go and exploit those resources for 5 years. They have all the concessions. They pay no tax. They repatriate all the capital. After 5 years, they say, well, we are closing it. And then you close in, and the government has absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. In fact, they leave the country poorer than they found it before.
We still need aid in Africa to remove these supply-side barriers that Pascal and others are talking about. If I take East Africa, again, this is why possibly it's also important that we in the donor community listen to the leaders. President Museveni, Kagame, and all have said, we need help to get a railway line that connects us to Mombasa. These are two of the best performing economies in Africa. But when I see the aid going in, it's in trickles. If we really want them to break the barrier, can we help them have that railway line that leads these economies to a port under aid for trade? So scaling up aid and the way we use the aid is important. I get money in my agency for studies on Africa's potential to process mangoes. But I don't get the money to say, can you help me build the pilot plant? It's $3 million. Can you help me combine your aid from the Dutch government with a processing company where you put part of the money and I build a pilot plant to show President that he can process his mangoes and stuff and put it on Tesco in London? That's what I want to see in the food crisis now. Not just the emergency, but how we combine in public PPP, combine ODA with some private sector venture capital to help these countries link to global markets. Corporate social responsibility. The President had a point. Africa has had an experience where they give all the guarantees. I was one of those ministers as well. Big mining companies. We want this guarantee, that guarantee, that guarantee. And it's usually for the duration, for the time the resources are available. And then they tell you, after 7 years, you've given them 10-year guarantee, it's not commercially viable anymore. So I raise the issue of corporate social responsibility. Because let us face it, today, Africa is washed with minerals. That's why the investment is coming. And by the way, in spite of lack of rule of law and democracy, they're coming in to sign contracts with us. But can we have a CSR, a corporate social responsibility, that says to these companies, as Ellen Johnson Sirleaf is trying to do in Liberia with Mittal, to say, hey, we want to know the revenues. We want to see that you don't import chickens to feed your local workers, but you help our farmers produce the chicken. Can we have a common value system with CSR for everybody, whether it's Chinese, American, whatever company? Because today it is the reality that our comparative advantage is still minerals. What we want to see today, after 50 years of training with the world, is will these companies also say, you know something, it is in our enlightened self-interest that we also invest in agribusiness supply chain, so these people supply us our food. So we help the economy evolve and the education system, so they have factories too.
From the business community point of view, that the presence of Africa is not at the right level. We don't have enough people coming to our meetings, able to be precise about their point of views, and participating really in the elaboration of this global framework. So I don't know how we can do that, but I think it's very important to be sure that all the sectors and all the countries are well represented according to the importance of these countries and these sectors on the global economy. And again, Africa is not where we would like to see this continent, and that explains probably why the solution is not really in place at global level.
If we want people to participate from Africa and we want other companies to come into Africa, what we suggest at the next African Union meeting to try to create a new sort of summit to bring in the collaboration with corporations and as well with government, the heads of states. What we'd like to do is to unite a few countries with about 30 or 20 heads of states from Africa and start planning and mapping country by country, region by region, what we should be doing and how we can optimize. Yes, there are commodities. Yes, they're trade. Bring in Pascal Lamy. Bring in all the different elements needed to move things forward.